Okay, so uh, you're curious about Elon Musk. Well, who isn't, right? This is the guy who's talking about putting people on Mars, but then also spends half his time tweeting, like, memes. So is he some kind of genius, a madman, or maybe, a little of both?
Little column A, a little column B, right?
Exactly. And that's why we're doing this deep dive, right? We've
Yeah.
got all this research you sent over, all these articles. We're going to try to figure out what makes Elon Musk tick.
Yeah, it's a fascinating puzzle, right? Because you can't just look at the companies, right? SpaceX, Tesla, you got to understand what's driving the guy. What's the underlying motivation?
Totally. So to do that, I guess we got to rewind a bit, right? Back to his childhood in South Africa.
Way back.
And what's interesting is all the stuff we read, it paints this picture of a kid who was kind of a paradox. On one hand, he's like this total bookworm teaching himself to code.
Classic sign of a future billionaire.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But then at the same time, he's dealing with, like, bullying and feeling like an outsider. Not exactly the typical Silicon Valley success story, at least at first glance.
Right, and that's where things get interesting. Because there's this whole narrative, right? The tough childhood creates the driven adult. But it's never that simple, is it? I mean, the guy built and sold his own video game at 12 years old.
12.
Yeah.
Seriously, I was lucky if I could convince my parents to buy me a new game at that age, let alone design one.
Exactly. So was it the difficult childhood that, forged this relentless innovator? Or are we just forcing a narrative? It's something to think about.
It really is. And speaking of, defying expectations,
Yeah.
how about dropping out of Stanford 2 days into a PhD program? Who does that?
That's ballsy, to say the least.
Right. I mean, that takes a special kind of confidence to walk away from something like that. Or maybe, a touch of craziness.
Well, it was 1995, right? The internet was just exploding. And Musk, he saw the potential probably before almost anyone. That's when he starts Zip2, which, if you remember, was all about helping newspapers get online.
And it wasn't just some hobby, right? He actually built a successful company, scaled it up, and then sold it for a profit a few years later. Pretty smart move. But then he takes that money and jumps headfirst into online finance with X.com, which eventually becomes...
PayPal. Another billion-dollar exit.
Talk about a golden touch, right? But here's the thing. With Musk, it never seems to be just about the money.
Exactly. It's like each success is just fuel for the next, even more ambitious project. Which, of course, brings us to, SpaceX. And I think it's safe to say this is where things get really interesting. We're not talking about starting some, social media platform.
Not another dating app.
Definitely not. We're talking about colonizing Mars.
Mars. I mean, most people would be happy with the vacation home in, Florida.
Yeah.
Musk wants to make humanity a multiplanetary species. Why?
That's the million-dollar question. And to understand his answer, we have to consider his worldview. Musk is deeply concerned about the future of humanity, not just in a philosophical sense, but in a very real existential threat kind of way.
Okay, I'm listening.
He talks about things like asteroid impacts, pandemics, even just our own capacity to mess things up. And he sees Mars as, well, kind of like our insurance policy, a backup planet, just in case things go really south on Earth.
Okay, but how realistic is that? I mean, is this genuine concern for humanity, or is this just like a billionaire with a god complex trying to play Noah's Ark in space?
That is the question, isn't it? And it's something we're going to keep coming back to again and again as we go deeper, because it's not just about getting to Mars, it's about why. It's funny you should mention the god complex thing when we get to Tesla. And it's almost like Musk looked at the entire auto industry and said, hold my beer, I can do this better.
And the crazy thing is, he kind of did. I mean, back when Tesla started, nobody thought electric cars were cool. They were seen as econo-boxes for eco-warriors.
Exactly. But Musk, he understood something that I think a lot of people missed. To really shake things up, to revolutionize an industry, you can't just appeal to logic or practicality.
Right.
You got to tap into something deeper.
Sure.
Exactly. Desire. He made electric cars, sexy, sleek design, insane acceleration. And suddenly, everyone wanted to be a part of the future. He changed the entire game.
No argument there. But, and this is a big but, Tesla's also had its fair share of issues, right? Production delays, missed deadlines.
Yeah.
All those things Musk is kind of infamous for. It's almost like he gets so fixated on this grand vision that he forgets about the nuts and bolts of actually making it happen.
The devil's in the details, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that tension between, ambition and execution, that's a recurring theme with Musk, isn't it? He sets these incredibly ambitious goals, which is inspiring, sure, but it can also lead to, let's just say, optimistic timelines.
To put it mildly.
Exactly. So we've got rockets, electric cars.
Yeah.
But of course, Musk's ambitions don't stop there, do they?
Not even close.
Enter Neuralink.
Ah, yes, Neuralink, brain-computer interfaces. Now we're talking. Okay, so full disclosure. This is where I start to get a little weirded out. What are we talking about here? Like, are we all going to be cyborgs?
Well, Musk talks about it in terms of, like, human augmentation, right? Keeping pace with artificial intelligence.
Okay.
He argues that by merging our minds with technology, we can, like, enhance our abilities, treat neurological disorders, even achieve a sort of symbiosis with AI.
Symbiosis with AI. That sounds intense and maybe a tad terrifying. To be honest, are we talking about like merging with machines, uploading our consciousnesses? What about the ethical implications of all this? Those are exactly the questions we need to be asking. Because you're right, this technology has the potential to fundamentally alter what it means to be human.
Right.
And with Musk, there's always that question lurking in the background. Is he really thinking through all the potential consequences? Or is he so focused on pushing the boundaries of what's possible that he doesn't, fully consider the downsides?
Okay, so we've got brains hooked up to computers, the potential for, like, robot overlords. Anything else Musk is trying to revolutionize while he's at it?
Well, how about transportation? But forget flying cars, okay? Musk wants to dig tunnels.
Tunnels, like underground.
Exactly, with the Boring Company. The idea is to build these high-speed underground transportation systems that can, like, zip cars across cities in minutes. No more traffic jams.
Okay, I gotta admit that does sound kind of cool, like something out of a Bond villain's lair, but hey, I guess reusable rockets probably sounded pretty crazy a few years ago too, right? And look at SpaceX now, so I'm not gonna write it off just yet.
And that's what makes analyzing Musk so fascinating, right?
Yeah.
He takes these ideas that sound totally outlandish, and then at least sometimes he goes and actually makes them happen. So you always have to ask yourself, is this just another one of his crazy ideas, or is this like another example of Musk seeing a solution that nobody else has even imagined?
Right, because I think if there's one thing we've learned today, it's that betting against Elon Musk is probably not a good idea, no matter how wild the idea sounds.
Yeah.
But after all this, we still haven't really answered the big question. Why? What's the driving force behind all this ambition?
It really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Is it pure altruism, like he wants to save humanity from itself? Or is it something more like ego-driven, this need to leave his mark on the world no matter the cost? Or maybe, and this is probably the most likely, it's some